All right, let's talk about something that's been quietly building hype in the background. Everyone's got their eyes on Witcher 4 and even Cyberpunk's future. But way back in 2022, CD Projekt Red dropped a huge surprise. The Witcher 1 is getting a full remake, not just a remaster with a little polish, but a complete rebuild of the 2007 game that kicked off the franchise. But there is an interesting twist that CD Projekt Red isn't the one leading the charge. Since their in-house teams are tied up with Witcher 4, Cyberpunk 2, and a brand new IP, they've handed the remake over to Fool's Theory, a studio with experience in RPGs, while CDPR supervises and provides technical support with their custom Unreal Engine 5 build. So today, we're going to break down what we actually know about this remake, what kind of game it's shaping up to be, when it might release, and the updates we've gotten so far. Let's get into it. Now, first thing I need to clear up is that this isn't a remaster. This is a ground-up remake in Unreal Engine 5. That means we will be having new visuals, new gameplay systems, and an overall experience designed to match today's standards. Now, the original Witcher was legendary, but let's be real, it was limited by the technology of its time, and it had pretty clunky controls and dated visuals. But this remake is aiming to, address those shortcomings by bringing it up to the modern standards set by The Witcher 3: The Wild Hunt. Now, you might be asking yourself, why use the Unreal Engine 5? Well, that is currently aligning with CDPR's broader plans for the overall Witcher franchise, as the upcoming Witcher 4 and other projects like Cyberpunk 2 will utilize the same engine. And this isn't just the stock version of Unreal Engine 5, it's a customized version co-developed with Epic Games, meaning CDPR basically has Epic's engineers backing them up. So yeah, I am really excited to see how they utilize this engine and the tech demo we got for The Witcher 4, if that's anything like what we're going to get for The Witcher 1 remake, which it should, definitely, then the hype is certainly real for this remake. Now, here's another interesting detail. Fool's Theory plans to cut mechanics that were outdated or frustrating in the original game. That means the combat system that's pretty clunky and certain gameplay elements that haven't aged well are not going to be in this remake, which I think is good. But apparently the goal is to preserve the essence of the original story while also making it more accessible and engaging for new players and returning players, and make the game, accessible on console. So while at first glance, hearing the words removing elements from the original that are simply bad or outdated, that might seem bad, but I think this is actually a good thing. The remake is meant to welcome both longtime Witcher fans and brand new players who never touched the first game. The biggest news so far, though, is that The Witcher 1 remake will be a story-driven single-player, fully open-world RPG. Now, that's a massive shift from the original's more linear, segmented approach. Think like Witcher 3's Scale and Freedom, but set in the story of Witcher 1. Personally, if they nail the combat something close to Witcher 3's style but updated and combine it with a proper open world, this remake could be something really special. It seems like that's what they're going to do. This open world approach is really expected to expand the game's world building with a focus of making the exploration better. Now, we don't have all the specifics on how the open world will look, but I'm expecting it to be more dynamic and immersive, especially when compared to the original game's segmented areas. So yeah, from everything that we've heard, it all sounds pretty good. But what about the gameplay? Well, this is probably the biggest point of conversation regarding the game, because a lot of people see the gameplay of The Witcher 1 as the biggest roadblock for new players because it's a very dense game. The Witcher 1 was released exclusively for PC, like I said, and it really did lean into being a PC-exclusive RPG. The gameplay is complicated and multi-layered, and while the story was really well written, the gameplay was seen by many as a barrier. Now, a lot of people who are on PC probably won't want the gameplay to be changed, but at the end of the day, CDPR is now much larger and more mainstream of a developer. So they're going to want to make this game as more accessible to the average gamer as possible, which means the gameplay is going to have to be overhauled, especially if they're planning on releasing the game on consoles and maneuvered with a controller as opposed to a keyboard and mouse. I'm not saying that there's a right or wrong approach here. I'm just telling you what's likely going to happen. I think it would be cool to enable a setting on the PC for a classic mode that gives players the choice to play the game however they want. Now, personally, I'm expecting the gameplay of The Witcher 1 remake to be similar to The Witcher 3, albeit with a more complicated spells and potion system. So the gameplay will likely be third person and over the shoulder with real-time parry system and melee combat. But when it comes to the spells and magic, Fool's Theory is likely going to try and come up with some kind of middle ground between the game's original dense text and The Witcher 3's more streamlined approach. The Witcher 4 is reportedly going to be expanded upon the mechanics of The Witcher 3 in its own ways, but The Witcher 1 remake will likely be more of a middle ground between 1 and 3 as opposed to being an evolution of 3, if that makes sense. The Witcher 1 remake is going to try to find ways to incorporate the ideas of Witcher 1 into the gameplay skeleton of The Witcher 3. Again, I'm not saying that this is the right or wrong approach. I'm just telling you what's going to happen given the direction of the Witcher IP that's moved since the release of the 2007 game. They don't want the game to be so dense that it pushes away more casual fans, but they don't want to dumb down the OG's mechanics so much that it doesn't properly represent the original game's ideas. It's a really difficult balance to strike, but if CDPR is overseeing things, I'm really confident Fool's Theory can make it work. When it comes to the game's voice acting, this is an aspect I know a lot of people want to know. Now, the remake will retain the core story of the original game that follows Geralt of Rivia as he navigates the morally complex world with monsters and pretty tough choices. However, there are some uncertainties about the, original voice acting, including Doug Cockle's iconic performance as Geralt. Will he be retained or re-recorded? To which I will be very clear. If they don't utilize Doug Cockle's voice for the upcoming remake, then you might as well just throw it away. I'm being very serious here. Now, back in 2022, during an interview with Doug Cockle, Eurogamer spoke to him, which Eurogamer said, Doug Cockle is the voice of Geralt in every main Witcher game. It's him you hear in The Witcher 1. So if CDPR wants to re-record or expand that performance, it's Cockle that they will need to call. To which Doug Cockle said, I'd be there in an instant. Cockle tells me, if CDPR did phone, but it hasn't rung yet, I know as much as you do about this at the moment. All I know is that CD Projekt Red has announced that they're going to remake Witcher 1 in Unreal Engine 5, and that's what I know. So I don't know if they're going to bring me back to do re-recording of the dialogue. I don't know if they're going to use the dialogue from The Witcher 1 as it exists. But what I will say, again, it's Doug Cockle or bust for this game, so they better do it right. If they don't get him to re-record the stuff, they better use the original stuff, or I will be very upset. Now, as for the release order, there's been a little confusion in the community as to which CDPR games are coming out first and how they're all going to play into each other, because even though CD Projekt Red isn't leading the development on The Witcher, their name is going to be heavily associated with it, and they don't want to have to compete with their own IP once it drops. And they don't want the hype for The Witcher 1 remake to overshadow the hype for the current projects that they're currently working on in-house. According to the official reports, the next CD Projekt Red related project to come out will be The Witcher 4, and then after that it will be The Witcher 1 remake and then Cyberpunk 2. Obviously, there is going to be a couple years between each project, possibly even more, which I shouldn't say possibly, like definitely more. So it's not like the 3 games are going to be rapid fired at us on an annual basis. As great as that would be, it's not going to happen. But that is the current order that those 3 games are supposedly going to come out. So The Witcher 4 will drop in probably 2, maybe 3 or 5 years. And then The Witcher 1 remake will come out about 2 years after that. And then Cyberpunk 2 will come out 2 or 3 years after that. Unfortunately, this does mean that we're probably going to be waiting until well after 2030 for the next Cyberpunk game, but that's apparently the timeline that we're looking at. But that being said, there's actually some theories going around that The Witcher 1 remake is actually going to need roughly a year in the oven after The Witcher 4 is released, which would only mean that there's about 12 to 16 months between the release of the 2 Witcher games. CDPR likes their expansions. They love their expansions. So I would say after The Witcher 4 is out, then the next year, like I'm saying probably a year after The Witcher 4 releases, we will likely get a big expansion for that. And then we'll probably get another expansion a year or 2 down the road after that. So essentially, The Witcher 1 remake is more or less going to be held up by the development of The Witcher 4, as well as the various expansions that we will likely get. So yeah, we're going to have to wait a little bit, but I think it will all be worth the wait. But one thing is for certain, The Witcher 1 remake is shaping up to be a bold reimagining of a beloved classic. Despite my concerns with the Unreal Engine 5, I am excited about the open world aspects and the modern gameplay at the core of the game. And while it does remain in early development, likely years away, the involvement of Fool's Theory and CDPR's oversight has me really confident in this project. But again, there's certain things like, retaining Doug Cockle as the voice actor for this upcoming game are pretty much non-negotiable. So with that being said, it's still early in development, and a lot can change, but with CDPR supervising and Fool's Theory putting in the work, this is shaping up to be something exciting. Just please, Fool's Theory, don't mess it up. Keep Doug Cockle on board, polish the combat, and this could be one of the best remakes in recent memory. That's all for now. Drop a like if you're hyped, subscribe with notifications so you don't miss updates, and as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.